it's John, and today we're talking about a bunch of Nintendo Switch games that look good. But before we do that, I'm going to do something that makes you feel uncomfortable, because that's what I like to do. This is the Switch, right? It's naked. And what is it when it's naked? It's just an itty-bitty tablet. Like, look! That's my hand. There's the Switch. It fits in the palm of my hand, kind of. And that's the thing that I want to kind of emphasize. The Nintendo Switch is a tablet. It's a tablet from 2017. The components come from 2015. I think when we talk about the Switch, we need to keep into account what it is. It's not a big, powerful home console. It never was. It's always been this itty-bitty tablet machine. And yet, it's still been capable of producing some absolutely beautiful games. And I want to highlight some of them, because right now there's a reputation against the Switch, but I don't think the library should be defined by Pokemon or these cloud games, because the Switch is capable of so much more than that. And I've made the decision also to exclude games like Doom, because while it is very impressive that it runs on the system at all, it is compromised. Games like The Witcher 3 and specifically Doom Eternal have been pushed so far that in my opinion, they do lose something. I mean, it's still very impressive that fricking Doom runs on this little tablet over here, the same size as the box. I never realised that they were the same size before, that's cool. But I think it's perhaps a bit too blurry to be considered for this video. We're looking for clarity, beauty, and good performance. So let's have a look at these games. Do you recall that the Switch originally had 2 GB of RAM, but then Capcom demanded that Nintendo double it to 4? And then the years went on, and Capcom didn't really do anything on the Switch. And we had ports of Resident Evil 4 and 5 and 6, and a port of Monster Hunter Generations and Okami, but nothing really made specifically for the Switch. The years kept going on and on and on, but eventually, in 2020, the Nintendo Switch got Monster Hunter Rise, a full-on mainline Monster Hunter exclusive to the Switch. Oh, it was back then, now it's on PC and Xbox and PlayStation, but back then, it was exclusive to the Switch, and it looked absolutely beautiful. Rise runs on RE Engine, which also powers Resident Evil 7, and Village, and 4 Remake, and 2 Remake, and 3 Remake, and Street Fighter 6. And while the visual fidelity isn't quite the level of those games, it is made with the Switch in mind. There are no compromises here. It's such a good-looking game in both its visual clarity and its performance. Merge all that with just a beautiful art style, and a dog, and Rise is one of the best-looking games on the entire system. There's a lot of impossible ports on the Switch, but I would say the majority of them have severe drawbacks, whether it's low resolution or low frame rate or just ugly textures. Like, it's great that The Witcher and Doom and Wolfenstein are on this tiny little system, but are all those compromises worth it? That is subjective. But with NieR Automata, there are very few drawbacks. In fact, in some ways, this has pros over other systems. NieR on PS4 ran at 900p, and while it was 60 FPS, it often fell way below that. NieR on the Switch is a dynamic 1080p, so the resolution can go higher, and while the textures have been downgraded, there's some very muddy ones every now and then, it still builds a cohesive whole, and the frame rate, while 30 FPS this time, is a very solid 30. I mean, it's lower than the big boy versions of the game, but it's also more consistent than those versions. And when you just get into the zone, I didn't really pay attention to the frame rate at all, it just felt like I was playing NieR Automata. I would say absolutely this is the best high-profile port on the Switch by a mile. This game was made for PlayStation 4, and yet they've squeezed it onto a tablet. It's nuts. I have tried many times to stop Next Level Games. I hang out outside their office and I say stop, but they can't be stopped. Whether it's Punch-Out, Mario Strikers, or Luigis Mansion, their animation teams and their visual teams are out of this world. Luigis Mansion 3, in my opinion, is the best looking Switch game. Hands down. It's probably partially owed to its perspective and the fixed camera, but it just looks so good, and the cutscenes are animated like a movie. Shout out to Mario Strikers Battle League as well, the animations in that game are glorious, but it just doesn't have the art diversity of Luigis Mansion 3. Everything in this game is interactive as well. You can just nudge into any object and it has physics. You can stick a plunger into a sofa, suck it up and just launch it across the room. The beauty is both wonderful and functional. Even disregarding the platform, I think this is one of the best looking games of the entire generation. Shinen are a ridiculously talented team. They made this game on WiiWare, which means it was under 40 megabytes in size. How on earth? And on the Wii U they gave us this, and on the Switch they gave us Fast RMX, an expanded version of that. And while Fast RMX is still one of the best looking games on the system, I think it got topped by Shinen's next game, The Tourist. Very different in tone and pace. You're just kind of this guy on an island roaming around and doing your own thing, but the lighting and textures and effects are just so damn good. It's much more stylized in kind of this 3D voxel art style, but it just comes together amazingly well. In fact, this game's also on Xbox and PlayStation 5, and on those platforms, it runs in 8K. As in double 4K. Shinen are wizards. Much like Next Level Games, they cannot be stopped. HD 2D is one of my favourite things from this generation, and while Octopath Traveler looked really good, I think in some areas they overdid it. There's some effects that just kind of outstay their welcome and kind of muddy the image. But then Live Alive came along and remedied all of my problems. You now have this crystal clear presentation, and so we're left with pixel art with all of these beautiful modern effects. The lighting is gorgeous, the shadows are amazing, the water sparkles, it just looks so damn good. Of course, this is all achieved in 3D by kind of giving 3D objects 16-bit looking textures, and I love when they move the camera to really show this. What looks like a 2D plane from the playing perspective is often shifted in cinematics to show that it is a 3D environment, and sometimes there's just full-on 3D models thrown in there. It's jarring in an amazing way, and Live Alive has so many different time periods with different reflections of art, and I can't wait until they use this style again in Dragon Quest III HD 2D, which again looks even better than the last game. And shoutouts Triangle Strategy, that game looks good too. Many don't really think about how Tetras Effect is a very demanding game. It runs on Unreal Engine 4, and there is a lot of effects going on at all times in the background. In fact, the final song on a vanilla PlayStation 4 has frame drops. And yet, they've brought it over to Nintendo Switch, and while you're playing, there's just seemingly no compromise. It's still 1080p, it's still 60 FPS, and it feels really consistent. Now, if you compare them side by side, you probably will notice the effects are toned down a bit, but when in the midst of playing, it just feels and looks so good. And this is the only time I'll say it because it's true for most games, but playing this on a Switch OLED is stunning. The blacks just feel so pure, and the colours pop in a way that a standard screen doesn't do service to. Tetras Effect is one of the best games of the generation, and one of the best looking games of the generation, and this Switch port sacrifices next to nothing. If you haven't played this game, it is an audio-visual journey, and you must play it immediately. Promise me! Promise me! Ori and the Blind Forest gave me newfound love for Xbox Game Studios. It was so beautiful and so well made and defined the Xbox One for a very long time. But then, Ori came to Switch, and so did its sequel, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. While a 2D game, Will of the Wisps is still very demanding. When this first came out on Xbox, there were performance issues, but they've optimized it so much that it can now run on the Switch. There's a gorgeous mix of 2D and 3D and incredible lighting. Don't disregard its technical accomplishments just because it's 2D, because there's so much going on under the hood. This is one of the most beautiful games ever made. Both Blind Forest and Will of the Wisps are incredibly good games, but the art of Will of the Wisps is phenomenal. Recent Paper Mario games have had a little bit of a divide in the community. Some people like them, other people just don't want to even touch them. But disregarding all of that, what a beauty. They've nailed the paper aesthetic, and everything just kind of looks like it's made out of cardboard and crafts. And then you've got these beautiful effects like gorgeous lighting, amazing shadows, great looking water. Regardless of how you may feel about the game itself, you can't deny that Origami King is a banger on the eyes. It's banging your eyes. You can't stop it. It's also got the largest scale environments in the Paper Mario series. Sometimes the terrain just stretches on and on and on, but it still maintains its beauty. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild can be a very good looking game. I mean, when you get up close to many of the floor or wall textures, they can be pretty basic, but the art style carries it so far. When the sun's setting and you get this orange glow on the water beneath you, it just looks great. It looks great all the time, whether it's night or day or raining or thunderstorming. Breath of the Wild is just all around a beauty. But Link's Awakening is technically something else entirely. Grezzo went for this sort of tilt-shift toy aesthetic, and not everyone loves the direction, but regardless of how you feel about it, the quality is crazy. Every asset is just so well put together, every building you go in feels fully realized, and the world is seamless. Both the visual and sound design are crazy good, so while this may not be how everyone pictured Link's Awakening being remade, if you can accept it for what it is, I think you can really appreciate just how good this game can look. Animal Crossing New Horizons is crazy high quality. There are so many unique assets in this game, and it's mind-boggling just how much detail's put into them. Like how a fan will cause things to sway around the room, or just the amount of detail put into something as basic as a chair. Every single point of the day just looks stunning, and I love coming onto the beach in the sunset and just seeing it reflect off the ocean, and it just causes immaculate vibes. The islands themselves have more room for beauty than ever, as you can terraform them and make them look as good as you want them to look, with beautiful waterfalls, or giant structures, or bridges, or vines. You can go for a natural aesthetic, or something very man-made. It really is what you want it to be, and the results of some of these islands are frankly just incredible. Mine's not one of them. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 really does laugh in the face of so many other games. There's so many other Switch games that have people saying, oh, the hardware's just not capable anymore, developers need stronger hardware, and while that may be true in some aspects, Monolith Soft have delivered something truly breathtaking with this game. Xenoblade 2 was already looking very good, but 3 is both artistically and technically way above. Xenoblade 2 in handheld mode was just this big old blur, but 3 manages to look really, really good. Like other games in the series, 3 is all about scale. The world is absolutely huge. You can stand way above and just see everything on screen at once, but it manages to achieve that while also achieving just pure beauty. Artistic beauty, but also technical beauty. And then as the game goes on, it keeps surprising you with more and more and more. There's one point in the game where you get this fast boat, and you can sail around the ocean and go to other islands really quickly. It's just impressive how this much can be done on screen, while still looking this good. Xenoblade 3 is absolutely one of the best looking Switch games, and it's just masterful how they've achieved this. This generation of Mario Party has looked stupidly good. Look at this meat! Look how good that looks! Why does it look so good? All the boards and the character models look really, really good. And like, what the hell's happening in this minigame? You've won, and it zooms out to show this massive scale sandstorm. There's a tornado that kills the Mario crew? What's happening? Most of us probably think simplicity when we think Mario Party, and for sure some of these minigames can look pretty simple, but other ones are just ridiculously well made. The textures, the environments, the art design. They didn't have to go this hard, but they did for some reason, both in Super Mario Party and Mario Party Superstars. ND Cube in general just have really good art designers. Clubhouse Games also looks really good. Look at the quality of some of these boards and backdrops. Look at the water here in Golf. That's some good water. Alien Isolation was a cross-gen game. It was on 360, PS3, PS4, and Xbox One. And while that older 360 version didn't run particularly well, it was like way below 720p and way below 30 FPS most of the time, the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions were beauties. It really does feel like the best game to capture the alien aesthetic, and just roaming around, this still feels like a very modern game. It may have been on PS3 and 360, but I think this is by no means a 360 game. This feels very PlayStation 4, and somehow the Switch version comes out on top, arguably. It does have a dynamic resolution that can hit 1080p, whereas PlayStation 4 is locked at 1080p, but the actual treatment to the image is far superior to PS4. It ends up being the cleanest looking version of the game on console, so this is one of the rare cases that the Switch version is better than the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One version. And remember, this is an itty bitty tablet. Dragon Quest XI was the very first game announced for NX, but it still took a while to actually release on the system, and that's because they essentially had to rebuild the game on a new version of Unreal Engine 4 so it could run properly on the Switch. They took a long time to optimize this, so much so that every re-release of this game is based now on this Switch version. Art carries this game a long way, but it's still absolutely stunning to roam through a field and have these giant sunflowers surrounding you. Dozens of enemies roam around in real time, and if you touch them, you can battle them exactly where you're positioned. It's something that Pokemon has caught up with in terms of gameplay in Scarlet and Violet, but Dragon Quest XI still feels way more polished than that. There's none of those visual bugs that Scarlet and Violet had, and it's just far more cohesively looking. And just like in Dragon Quest VIII, you can fly around the entire overworld from above and see the small world dwarfed beneath you. Almost absolutely every aspect of Dragon Quest XI is good. The world design, the visuals, the gameplay, the story, everything just kind of merges together to make arguably the best RPG that's been given to us this era. Dragon Ball FighterZ. This damn game looks so good. I don't know if it's pushing any limits, but Arc System Works has just nailed how to make the anime aesthetic look good in 3D. Even other modern attempts of Goku, like Goku in Fortnite, look like this. FighterZ though, look at that! It's definitely a case of art over technical prowess, but still every part of this game looks absolutely stunning, and I can't argue that it's not one of the best looking games on Switch. Both Ni no Kuni 1 and Ni no Kuni 2 are on the Switch, and while the first game may not be that surprising considering it's a PlayStation 3 game, the second one was built specifically for PlayStation 4, but this Switch port still looks remarkably good. It definitely doesn't hold up quite so well in the overworld, there's some big frame drops there, but when exploring in the full-size view, this game can look utterly remarkable. It still has that Studio Ghibli art style, and all the towns and explorable environments and the combat looks stunning. I honestly didn't really jive with the gameplay itself, but the art is remarkable. And the art of the first game is also still really great looking. So I said I wouldn't include any big compromise ports like The Witcher 3 and Doom, but here's an exception. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. This was made from the ground up for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and yes, the Switch version is compromised. It can be a little soft, it can be a little blurry at times, but I think this holds up way better than most of the big AAA ports on the system. Hellblade on any platform looks stunning, so while the resolution has taken a hit, the art still remains great, and there's very few areas that without comparison I would say, oh this is completely compromised. Now the Switch version still looks stupidly good, and people seem to forget that this game is even on the Switch. But yeah, here it is, this exists! Donkey Kong Country Tropical Flippin' Freeze! While this is technically a Wii U game, the resolution was bumped from 720p to 1080p, so it looks even better than it was in Wii U. If you've not played this game, you may wonder why is this game on the list, and I'm just saying look at it with your eyes! It is beautiful! There are so few games out there with this many unique assets. Most platformers will make a type of platform or a type of geometry and just reuse it to make their levels, but Tropical Freeze makes so much from the ground up. Everything feels so man-made in this game and sort of stitched into the environment, and the cohesive whole of the backgrounds and the foregrounds and the playing field just work so well together. And yeah, you've still got those silhouette levels from Returns, but they've amped them up. You now got these beautiful underwater silhouette levels, and you've got so many unique environments. It's no longer just the grass world, the fire world, the water world. Now you've got like this celebration in the savannah, or you've got a level where sometimes you swim in the water and other times you're diving out to platform on the surface. It's so dynamic in everything it does, both the gameplay, the audio, and the visuals. If you've not played Tropical Freeze, do it! One of the best looking 3DS games was Attack of the Friday Monsters, a gorgeous blend of anime style 3D and just these stunning hand-drawn 2D environments to create something that looks kind of like a PS1 game with Final Fantasy VII or Resident Evil, having these pre-rendered backgrounds with 3D models over them. But doing that in the modern era can look even more stunning. And so with Shin-chan, me and the professor on a summer vacation, we have something that looks remarkable. I don't think the 3D models are of the highest quality possible, but the backgrounds look so damn good, and the time of day shifts as you play the game, so sometimes you see them in the day, sometimes at the sun setting, sometimes at night, and the way the lighting shifts with all of this is beautiful. There are few games just as cozy as this one. It feels good to roam around just collecting bugs and doing nothing because the vibes are immaculate. I would have liked to see some more refined 3D looking models, but it kind of works for Shin-chan. Shin-chan, go play it! There you go, Nintendo Switch, you have earned your clothes back. You are capable of producing some nice looking games. Did I miss anything big off this video, do you think? I think there's certainly a lot of great looking Switch games out there, but in my opinion, these are among the very best. But I know that art is subjective, Maybe something that I don't think looks beautiful, others may think looks beautiful. Or maybe you're angry that I put a certain game on this list. Let me know. Shout at me. I love negative comments. I want you to tell me that I'm a frickin' bozo. I want you to say, hey John Bozo Bozenkins, why don't you make a good video for once? I want you to put that on every video I produce for the rest of my life. I don't know how to end this anymore. Bye!